with a note that you are joining a Tech Talk. It's aimed for nonprofits, and any of our community is welcome to attend. These are free quarterly webinars. They're brought to you by a partnership with the Nonprofit Practices Institute and NCW Tech Alliance. And our Tech Talks are really designed to provide really valuable insights into the kinds of technology that nonprofit organizations would really benefit from. And so we've tried to craft examples and draw resources from the ways that you are working to support the communities that you serve. All right. I will introduce our organization. So I am Sue Kane. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Sue. It's nice to see you or to be on with you today. I am supporting NCW Tech Alliance. NCW Tech is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We are regional, and our mission is really to bring people and technology together to enable a thriving community. We have programs and services in entrepreneurship and STEM education. We are serving technology enablement and adoption for communities across Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Okanagan, and Adams counties. And so it's an honor to be able to do this work. And our nonprofit partners across the region, we want you to be empowered by technology as well. So that is the point of today. Now, we could not do this work and this particular workshop without our partners at the Non-Practice Institute. So I will introduce our partner and collaborator, Claire Oatley, who is on the line as well.
Hi, everybody. Claire Odie here from the Community Foundation of North Central Washington. We absolutely love this partnership with the Tech Alliance. It's such a great series. For those of you who aren't as familiar with NPI, it's a longtime partnership between the Icicle Fund and the Community Foundation. We also often partner with Thriving Together North Central Washington to bring affordable workshops and training opportunities. We have a lot going on this spring, so you can check out the slide for some upcoming workshops and opportunities. Go to our website, Community Foundation /NPI, and you'll be able to find out more information and mark your calendars for some great upcoming learning opportunities. Thank you all so much. Thanks, Sue.
Our agenda for you today is actually to pack a punch where we've got a short, practical background, high level. We're not going to get into the weeds with technical specifics, but practical understanding of how AI works, because that will help you to be able to identify places where you can use it. And then I'm going to show you a tool that if you've joined us for a while, if you were here last year, we actually showed you a tool called NotebookLM. It's a Google tool. But then AI technology is moving so quickly, it's got all kinds of new features. And so I want to revisit it because it's a tool that you can use to get more out of the documents that you already have as a nonprofit leader. And so I'll give you a couple of use cases and examples that really highlight that. So to start, I want to tell you just a little bit or frame what AI is, because I think a lot of folks have misconceptions about what we mean when we say AI. AI is not one single tool. There are some really popular tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot. Those are specific types of AI, specific types of AI tools in general. But when we talk about AI, sometimes casually we say it's a single thing, and it's really not. It'd be like saying computing. Computing can be of a lot of different types of things. AI is not one single tool. It's not one single platform or product. It's definitely not a fad. What it is a foundational layer of technology. It's more akin to like electricity or the internet. So it's going to show up entirely differently depending on what I plug in. Electricity looks different. It's really important for us to be able to understand that, because when we say things like, I tried AI, it didn't work, you probably tried a technology and that specific application didn't give you back what you expected. Don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean that there's no value or that it's a hype or a fad. We're talking about a whole bunch of technologies when we use the word AI. At a very high level, AI is not new either. It's been around for a long time, decades. But generative AI is a specific type of artificial intelligence that uses a lot of data and information. And it uses that data and information and it processes the patterns inside that data and information. So it's like a software that is able to crunch large amounts of information and data and see patterns in it and draw inferences. And that is a really important thing. It's using that data to make predictions. If you've been in Wenatchee all this week, you know that winter finally arrived. And the data that you've been capturing says it was winter weather the last couple of days. Will it snow today? Gosh, we sure hope so, I think. But um, it's the data that we have in our experience that's allowing us to make that prediction about what will happen today is the same way that generative AI is using the data and making that inference going forward. It's really important to understand too that it could be totally wrong. I could be able to say, just like the weather, it certainly looks like it might like to snow. The conditions look right. If I declare it will, I might be wrong. I'm using data and I'm using a pattern to make a prediction, and it's exactly the same way. So AI can make predictions that are incorrect. Problem is, it often makes them confidently, which makes us really cautious about the ways that we use AI. There are lots of really common models that are being used. Many people have experience now with ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or Grok. There are lots of different AI models. These models that I'm giving examples of here are specifically large language models, which is an AI that has been trained to look for patterns in speech or text. They do that by actually breaking down text or speech into really small pieces that are called tokens. Sometimes a token is a word, sometimes a token is a part of a word. And we'll talk more about tokens here in just a second. But what it's doing is taking that piece of text or that piece of speech, it's breaking it down into small pieces, it's sending that out into a computer field, and then looking at mathematically what is close to that specific token. So if I gave you the prompt or the start, twinkle, twinkle, little, right? You know, because you are also a pattern matching machine, that that next word is probably star, probably. And just like that, mathematically, the computer in an instant is making an inference that this word most likely goes after that word. And that is how it's building that recognition. It's not, importantly, like a search engine might, it's not pulling down specific retrieval of answers that it's already seen. It's making a mathematical synthesis and grabbing new ideas. So we're not copying, we're not Google searching, it's not working like a search engine used to. It's creating brand new answers and responses based on mathematics. Apologies, I am still recovering from a cold last week. So, large language models. What I want you to think about with large language models is it's kind of like a chef. If we think about a chef in a restaurant, a chef has been trained on thousands of different culinary skills and recipes, and they may have different access to ingredients. They have that as their training data. But every new dish is a brand new creation. And just like that, the chef is using the patterns that they know to be able to put that structure and that composition and that skill into the dish that they create. When you place an order, the chef isn't just in there copying a recipe and handing you back the recipe they learned. They're actually translating that into a brand new medium. They're creating a dish out of that and they're sending you back something else. What we're going to see is our LLMs and our AI tools, they do the same thing. They're going to take information and they're going to put it through this information processing system and they're going to create something brand new for us. And that's really what's so powerful about it. But you can't just use an LLM like a search engine. A search engine, I can type to it like a caveman. I could just type it in there, and it will guess, are you thinking about this? Are you thinking about this? It will deliver up ready composed things. And it's more about sorting things than it is, it's a robotic process, it's a technology process, but it's not building new things, a search engine. AI is different. AI is actually synthesizing brand new things. So I want to give you a slide that kind of helps us to be able to compare here. Traditional AI and even some of our search engine types of tools that we've been interacting with for decades, they might sort things, they might analyze things, they might classify things. They're following predetermined rules and they're delivering up content that's pre-created. Whereas generative AI is synthesizing new things, it's creating brand new things. It's like our creative chef that's inventing dishes that have not yet been in existence or new flavor combinations. It's actually able to adapt because it's creating brand new things to nuanced differences in the instructions that you give it. And that's really important. So it's not like a search engine. It's not a robotic process that's just regurgitating at you. It is creating something brand new, but it's still not understanding it the way that a human does. I do want to spend just 1 second talking to you a little bit about tokens because tokens is a really weird, abstract idea. And our kitchen analogy really helps us to be able to contextualize this. What you want to think of tokens as tokens are those partial words or maybe words. Remember that in the English language, adding a prefix can completely change a word. So sometimes it's using just a part of a word to be able to give it directions. Kind of like an ingredient for a recipe, I might use a half a carrot, not a whole carrot, it's carrot. You're going to see that same thing where a token could be a word fragment. It can actually be punctuation, which can change what we mean by a word. It can be spaces, it can be the specific phrasing. So it's really interesting the way that an LLM sees information is through breaking it down into these and mathematically sending that out and looking at how these things align or connect. And it can actually tell from what mathematically is around it in the context of that token. Like if I use the word bank in the token as a token, it will actually look at what's around it and mathematically make an analysis to know whether I'm talking about the financial institution or the river when I talk about a bank. That's where a token makes a difference, is that little piece of an ingredient makes a difference in the composition of the entire recipe for that chef. And then another concept that you need to be able to understand for AI is actually the interface. So, what's happening, and the reason that I want you to be able to understand this clearly is that if we want to use AI responsibly to take information and recreate brand new things, you have to kind of understand how and where the humans are interacting with this loop of information. So, I've been talking about how AI tools and LLMs are software that helps us to be able to do pattern matching and information. There's a couple different places in the structure of how we're using AI tools that you actually have the ability to go in and interact. The application programming interface, or the API, the API is going to be the kind of interface that you have on your phone if you're using ChatGPT or maybe on your web browser. I'm going to show you an application interface of NotebookLM. That layer is where you're able to put information and input in. And then on the back side of that layer, there's some processing that happens. And the way that you structure that processing can be the difference between getting something that you can actually use and getting back something that maybe it's not as successful or it's not as helpful or it doesn't come back what you wanted. And so understanding how that application programming interface works is a really important part of being able to learn how to use AI tools because we can't just use them like search engines. We won't get back what we could get back out of them. So in API, if we're using our chef analogy again, API is kind of like our order ticket. When I go in, I sit down in a restaurant, I tell a waiter who writes down an order ticket. That is going to be your application interface. And the order ticket is going to be what goes back to the chef and gives the chef the instructions. In the AI world, an API is your prompt, which we've done a tech talk about, your prompt, the type of setting, the type of instructions, the type of detail that you provide, and that context is really, really important. So hold that thought for a second. And then in the LLM, it's actually going to be able to give what the LLM needs to be able to deliver its instructions, basically, so that you can get back out from the API a response, a classification, a summary, a generated image, a report, a video. It could come back in a variety of ways. In the kitchen, I don't get back text written on a paper. It somehow transforms into my dish or my food. In the same way, the API is going to be able to deliver you products back in a variety of different modalities. Just to kind of summarize where we're at, and this is actually kind of fun, we used Copilot actually to say, if I want to explain all of this and give this chef analogy to kind of help people understand or unravel this, can you summarize this for me? And we haven't gotten to all these places yet. But what I want you to notice is that AI isn't one single application or one single appliance. Instead, you're being given access to a whole toolbox. So the whole kitchen, including the chef and the pantry and the tools and the recipe and the workflow. In this way, our kitchen metaphor, the tokens were our ingredients. Those are the pieces of the language model that we're working with. The API is like the order ticket, and it's your request that's going into the chef. The LLM is the chef, is assembling that output and giving you back, um, the various dishes and compositions. And everything that you are using is working through what used to look like a chat or a text box where you used to do like a Google search. So the interface of it, the application layer, looks similar to a search engine, but don't make the mistake that your AI tool is operating like a search engine. There's a lot more under the hood. We built a graphic um, to be able to show this parallel as well. And I'm only going to spend a second on this slide to just be able to take you through this process. But it's kind of like you as the end user are making your request through that application programming interface. That is going to a server backend system that's doing the AI computation, and it's going to return back to you the response, not necessarily in the same format, kind of like our chef and our customer and our. Now, if you use AI in just that quick loop, one of the biggest risks that you'll get back, and one of the criticisms that people have, is that the chef is working from its training data. And if it doesn't have training data to specifically speak to what you want, or if you are vague, if you speak to your AI like you're a caveman, we'll say, and put it in like it's a search engine, it's going to return information that's not accurate or that has mistakes. And it might return things that look like credible sources that are not credible sources. And we call that a hallucination. Excuse me. In our chef analogy, which has been so helpful, this is the same kind of thing if our chef has been trained, but you gave him something that was a little bit too vague, or the chef doesn't have the right ingredients to be making that thing, but he's going to try to deliver for you. And so he's going to replace something that's missing with a likely substitute, but maybe it's not exactly what you wanted. That's actually what a hallucination is doing. So the machine processing has gaps in its data. If the prompt is not very clear about what you want, or it's not something that's in the training data, or the model, doesn't have all of the pieces, it may still present back what it thinks is the right answer and isn't. And it's the software actually functioning properly. We just didn't give it enough input because it's not retrieving things um, like a search engine would. LLMs in general also do not access the internet in real time unless they've been explicitly enabled to do that. And there are a couple really, really recently, like within the last couple weeks, that have been given access to the internet. But by and large, most systems, they actually get programming updates to let them know specific things like what day it is today. So if you asked your LLM, it might be able to tell you what day it is today, but it's not searching the internet to be able to retrieve that information for us. And when you ask a question, the model is actually going to predict what it has seen in its training data, not necessarily what's on the internet. Now, some like Copilot and Claude, they do have enabling web browser internet. This is very, very new. And you're able to um, specifically identify or enable that you want it to be able to search the internet. So again, I'm going to run out of time today if I spend too much time on this, but what I want you to know is that if you want to reduce hallucinations, the best way to control that is actually to provide content that you want it to be able to reply from. So for our nonprofit leaders, you can actually take documents that you already have and create a database or a repository to be able to use this information processing in new ways. And this process is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. Retrieval augmented generation is kind of like giving the chef access to a pantry. And you're saying you don't want them to make up the recipe from anything. You want them to only make up the recipe from things that they have access to in the pantry. If they don't have access to it in the pantry, we want you to return back and say, I don't have access to that information. You can lock this down a little bit to reduce the hallucinations that you get by providing documents that you want it to use. And you can structure in your prompt to be able to say, I only want you to use these specific resources or tools. What we showed you last year was actually a tool that does this for you already. So you can create RAG or retrieval augmented generation by providing resources to a variety of notebook LM, or a variety of LLMs. NotebookLM actually does this in the way that it's been structured as a tool. The Notebook LM, if you were here for the last training or the workshop, or you haven't been here quite yet, has an API that actually gives you a place to be able to add specific sources that you want this LLM to interact with. And it will only interact with those sources on this list. It will not answer questions that it is grabbing from the internet. So you can add videos, websites, you can add specific notes. If you have a Google Drive, you can add specific documents from your Google Drive. You can upload PDFs. It's very versatile. It will do YouTube videos, and you can create a repository that is going to be used for this retrieval augmented generation. It's going to be actually using this information to create the responses that it has for you. And in 1 year, there are all sorts of brand new features. So if it's been a minute since you visited Notebook LM, what I want to show you is a couple new features. And then I'm going to show you under the hood just a couple quick ways that NCW Tech Alliance is using Notebook LM to be able to get more out of the documents that we already have access to. So when we showed you this previously, Notebook LM came out and it had things like you could create a podcast out of resources. You could create, some very basic slides or interactions. Now there are some things like flashcards that you can create, which could be really useful if you're trying to create a workshop or an interactive activity. I'll show you. We actually thought this might be really great for a training if you were doing a new employee training or a volunteer training to create some flashcards to be able to study with. You can actually create quizzes and make that information and content a little more dynamic as well. New features that it's got, infographics. So I can put together a whole bunch of resources and ask it, can you help me like visualize what this looks like? And I'm able to put in some prompts to influence how that infographic looks. And then one of my new favorites is a mind map that allows you to see your way through the organization or structure a um, of a document that might be really complex. Like I used the mind map to be able to um, look at a grant, a federal grant that I was trying to apply for to see how does this all lay out. So I'm actually moving over and I'm going to give you kind of a quick preview at some of the notebooks that we've been using. And I'm looking for confirmation. I think you can see my screen now. Am I still sharing my screen okay? Okay. Um, okay, so I want to show you really quickly a couple places where NCW Tech Alliance has been using NotebookLM. And I'll point out here, I've added sources just by adding this source, and then you can see all the different variety of ways that you can add sources. But I've added our employee handbook and some branding guidelines. And here are some of the places where I'm able to, the mind map, for example, in my employee handbook, where is that policy? I know we have one, and this mind map is interactive in a way that I can say, I think I have an operational policy for that. I think I want to look for my travel time compensation policy or my, so I've got an interactive ability to be able to go directly to that place in that document. And hopefully you can find some additional application or value for if you think about the bylaws that you have or the board packet that you have. And when I clicked on that, it's giving me the specific reference to my policy. So I just made a really fast, took about 10 seconds to load this up. And now the LLM is pulling directly from my policy. Now, I could ask it some questions and I can be very interactive with it, like you would with ChatGPT, and have a little chat with my policy document. If I'm doing an onboarding training, I also could do things like the flashcards or the quiz questions. So I can make that a very dynamic, engaging document now. You can share your notebooks with other people that have the same domain as you as well, which can be really helpful. Our annual report is another document that NCW Tech Alliance has that I loaded up the annual report and then said, hey, I'm thinking I would really love to be able to have a slide deck, a walking, talking slide deck. Or I want a table, a data table, to be able to summarize some of the major events and highlights that pulled out in my annual report. And so I asked it to, I loaded up just the annual report from 2024 and asked it to highlight some of our events and our partners or sponsors. And it's drawing this directly from that document to be able to reformat and create a brand new way of interacting with that. I'm going to show you just one more. And the last one that I want to show you is we have been using our, well, actually, this one is actually a lot of fun. Our AI in Action series, I loaded just the 3 YouTubes recordings of the workshops that we did last fall, and then asked it to be able to make me a summary blog post um, of what we were able to accomplish. And it did a really beautiful job of giving me a draft about what the videos actually captured. And that can be a thing that you can use for, speaking social media content or website content. I could put that video and this blog article together, and it can quickly generate or repurpose some of that content. And then the last one I will show you, and then I'm headed to questions, so hopefully you're putting some questions in there, is we've been doing a lot of policy work and following some of the ways that AI and digital access issues are in the legislative session. And what I've done here is I've loaded up the bills, the specific bills that we're following and tracking, and then some quick notes from the legislative session about what's happening with each of these bills. And I've been able to create then a repository. I added some content about what are the legislators that I have relationships with. And I can create, like just this morning, Can you create me a data table of the bills that we're tracking and what the last action date was for those bills? And then I'm able to communicate that out to our network of partners who are doing advocacy and education work. And it gives me a schedule of the um, dates and the bills, which versions of the bills. I can ask it specific questions, like if I don't understand several of our bills this week were amended on the floor. And I can say, what does it mean to be engrossed? All of a sudden, some of our bills are engrossed. And I'm chatting with the legislative data session in a way that I can use very natural language to engage in this way. And here it's going to give me its response. I do want to tell you about two upcoming calendar dates to hold for us. First is the Digital Navigator training, a digital navigator training that's coming up really soon with our partners at NCW Libraries. Ash is going to be talking about information literacy and information. How do you know that the information that you're seeing is good information and you can be confident in what you're seeing? And this is a free training for individuals who are interested in helping others as well. And so you'll have some tools to be able to walk away with that you can share with the communities that you're serving through your nonprofit work. This is March 18th from 11:30 to 12:30. It is virtual and it is going to be worth spending an hour with us to learn about the digital information literacy um, coming up. And then the second is our next tech talk is again a return because there's so much to tell you about, but AI and grant writing. And we actually have Allison Jones, who's the founder of Spark the Fire grant writing, who's going to return to give us another digest or some more tools about how AI can help us with some of the grant writing that we're all doing. That one's May 14th from 12 to 12:45. And both of those registrations are currently in the chat and on the screen. And with that, I'm going to thank you for giving us your time and allowing us to be able to have some of these conversations with you. We're so grateful to be in partnership with so many incredible nonprofits across North Central Washington, and I really appreciate what you're doing. So please let us know how we can continue to provide the right kind of information and resources, and hope the rest of your day is just as great as the last 45 minutes have been.